Got the first coat of paint on the engine, and while that's drying, I'll work on some stuff that I noticed. These horns that I'd rebuilt are extremely hard to reach to the locating mount with the engine in there. You can see those 3 holes right there. So there's a high and a low horn, and you can tell by the mount that goes on them, the horn has to be up. So you got the 3 holes down there, and the horn has to be up, and you want the horn facing forward. So this would be the right side, and it'll go into those 3 holes down there. And I think they're marked. Yeah, there's an H right in there. It's the high side. And then on the left, this guy will mount like this over on this side so that it points forward. And if we look on this guy, we'll see there's an L. That's the low tone. So I'm gonna get those mounted while this engine's out of here, and I might route the wire harness around that way also, just so it's easy, and go ahead and hook those up. Got the horns in. Actually found it was not too bad if you have the grill out. You reach through the grill with one hand to hold the nuts, and then reach around back under this side with the other hand to hold the other side. So those are installed now. This is the electrical junctions that go up front on each side, and these bolts are really rusted, so WD-40 and just gently working them back and forth until they start to turn, and get them all off there. Then I'll blast it and cover the parts and then paint them. After blasting, masking on those parts. Starting some wire harness feeds, and this is a kick down relay switch, so I fed all the dash stuff up in there. There's the flasher connector, and went ahead and plugged in the kick down relay, and you can kind of see that wires, there's wires that go on down to the transmission once we get the engine back in there. And the main reason I started doing that is I wanted to feed this wire, which has the connections for the headlights. Wanted to get them fed up to get ready to mount these on that I just painted. So I'm getting ready to hook up those headlight connections. Noticed on the pigtails of these, got to clean those up. This one looks pretty good on this end, and this one looks really bad. So, and this one, of course, I need to fix those. So I am going to start with the easy one and just basically just strip this back and tape it up. You can see once you strip this stuff back, the covering's pretty good once you get back in there a little bit. It's usually just the ends, they're exposed to the elements more, and strip this back so I can just tape those up. I leave the ends exposed just a little bit so I can see the color codes. Okay, when you take this out, 2 long adjusting screws for aiming this, and then this spring on the bottom connects on this little clip right there, so you gotta kind of put that in and then pull that out. I did all that so I could get to this wire connection and either push it through, or I might have to redo all of it, we'll see. So this is all one molded piece, so the only way to fix that is I just gotta cut this molding and expose these so I can separate them. Okay, I got that fixed up. I preserved about 80% of that rubber grommet and got those wires separated, so I'm not too worried about a little bit of fraying right there. Those can't touch each other or get into anything. So have these screws all the way up and they just slide in and out there. And then the tricky part is down in here. There's that spring down there. There's a little slot, so you use a screwdriver and push it down and hook it under there. So it'll drive you crazy. Okay, a little WD-40 got all these retainer screws off, so now we can go mount these headlights. And the whole reason I was doing all that is so I could get these up to the wiring blocks I was working on. Now we've got these signal indicators go in these holes on the front of the car, right under the headlights there. And what's interesting with these is the light socket is actually part of the casting itself. And when these got chrome plated, this ring here won't slide all the way down into the hole now. So it's getting stuck, so I can either grind a little copper out of that hole or just slightly change the diameter of this. I think I'll do that. It's easier, but we got to get this to go down to the bottom of the hole so that it'll hold the rubber in place, and then this can spring down, and then the lights can grab this little offset here. You push the bulb in and turn it. And this piece on here has got a keyway on the top, and that keyway aligns with this slot here. So I've got to make sure that this piece is also small enough to slide down, at least down into this area here, so that the light bulbs can get there. And we need to make sure it can move around. Got these signal lights in. I've got to go to a hardware store and get some really short, like 1/4 inch 3/8 632 bolts to hold the lenses in, and had to put washers on the back side to clamp that in, and did a little bit of grinding on the fiberglass in there to get that to fit right between paint and some fiberglass repair. It was holding it up, but the other side, got the other side on there also. So now we've got headlights, turn signals, bumper. I'm gonna wait to put the grill in because I got hook up some ground wires to those horns and lights. And then up here we've got some of the routing done. These are main headlight wires, and the smaller ones are the signal wires, so do some more work on those tomorrow. Okay, we've got the 632 screws in there, so this is nice and solid, looks good now. Got the other one on also. Got one more wire to hook up for these lights. If you notice, there's a black wire that ties the horn and the headlight and the turning signals together. There's a black wire there, and they look like this. And where they go is, this is the headlamp. So that one will go in there, and you tie the little piece over to the turning signal, and then on the other end, this guy will go on one of the bolts right there. So it just jumps across there and ties them together. I'll put those on now. And here we got the black wire hooked up to both connections now on both sides. So I'll put the nuts on the junctions up there for the headlights, and I think we're done on the front end of the wiring. Got the horn relay mounted that I painted yesterday. These two wires here are going to attach. There's one that goes forward and one that goes back for power, and then we've got one that'll come up through the column, and that'll be the signal that plugs in there. You can see on that horn relay on this left side, that's where the round connector is, runs up to the horn button on the steering wheel, goes up through the steering column. So on the opposite side of the relay is the wire that goes forward to the horns. So that's what I've done here. You know, this is where the horn wire will come in, and then this is on the opposite side, and that's the wire that goes forward to the horns, and then this is the coming out of the dash for the power ground loop. I think I finally figured out what this bar was for. It's after I put the convertible lid and trunk on, I wasn't sure what this is, and now I see it's the connecting bar for the radiator. So I wondered where the top support was. I didn't see anything up here to bolt to. So once the radiator's in, before I tighten it, you know, it'll be wobbly, and I can slide this down. There's a hole down there, and then that bolts to there's a cross member frame there, and then this piece will bolt onto the top of the radiator. There's a little fork clip on the top of that. So I think we can just kind of slide it down in there, rotate it, connect it. But I gotta get that into position before we tighten the radiator. And it's a little rough looking, so I'll go ahead and blast it and give it a nice paint job. Okay, the block is at least dry enough now where I can put the touch up on the second layer. Since I painted over that orange, you know, where there's roughness in the casting, you can sometimes see little bits of orange. So I'm just gonna dab the paintbrush to try to cover up anywhere I see orange. Same thing on this side over here. Just wherever I see orange, I'll just try to hide that a little better, and then we'll start assembling the engine. Preparing for that radiator also. There's this front air vent for the hose to hook onto, and had to make a special screwdriver. There's a screw back here in this corner. No, there's no way to, so I just took a cheap screwdriver and bent it so it would hold the bolt while I was tightening the nut on it. And I went ahead and installed one of the air vent hose loops so that I could connect this wire harness holder to keep the wires out of the way. And then I also finished that horn relay and also hooked up a foot switch for the high beam light inside. So I had to go ahead and put that grill on. So I had to reach around up in there. Wasn't sure if I was going to have to get into the engine bay to get that. There's 4 bolts that hold that on. One on each side, one on the top, one down the bottom. This hole had been completely covered over with fiberglass repair, so I had to re-aim the hole, and it goes right along this curve down inside here. So I had to put a really long bolt and a big washer to catch a different area so I didn't put too much stress on that fiberglass. So it's starting to look more like a car.